Let's play a little trivia, by the way, Badaki.
I'm listening.
What rookie wide receiver in the history of fantasy football has the highest ADP of all time?
Oh, gosh. I was going to say Jamar Chase.
It is Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver 9 this year. And by the way, guess who's second on that list? Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. have the highest ADPs from rookie wide receivers of all time. Today, we're bringing you players that have top 12 league-winning upside, but they're being drafted from round 8 onwards, and not many people are talking about it. So we're going to bring you these players. Do us a favor, hit that like button. Like goal today is 100 likes. With your help, I think we can do so. First guy I think that we're not talking about enough is Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie round 1 wide receiver out of LSU who heads to Jacksonville. In general, it's been a good idea to be early rather than late on round 1 rookie wide receivers in fantasy drafts. Here are some round 1 wide receivers, Badaki, who have beaten their rookie ADP in the past 5 years. Okay? Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle, Garrett Wilson, CeeDee Lamb, Chris Olave, Zay Flowers, Brandon Ayuk, and Hollywood Brown.
Okay.
Wide receivers are getting better and better. They're getting more involved in offenses from an earlier stage. Obviously, we know what Puka Nacua did last year as a rookie. Jordan Addison, as well last year. Unfortunately, we have all, as a fantasy community, gotten much smarter about rookie round 1 wide receivers being good in fantasy. This year, that has made drafting rookie wide receivers really difficult. If you average out ADP, again, from ESPN, Sleeper, and Underdog, here's some places where you have to take some of these rookies, right? So Marvin Harrison Jr., he's either going to be a back end of the first round pick or an early second round pick, right now averaging out as a wide receiver 9 at the 205 in a 12-man, 1 quarterback league. Malik Neighbors at the 406. Rome Odunze 709, Xavier Worthy in the 8th, same with Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman in the 9th, Brian Thomas at the 904. Of all those names, he's last. By the way, Brian was selected as a 4th wide receiver in the draft. Most of us really loved him as a prospect. Went to a situation where he's desperately needed to a quarterback that I like, but is currently being drafted as a 7th rookie wide receiver off the board. We got 2 round 2 guys going ahead of him in ADP. Let's play a little trivia, by the way, Badaki. You ready for this?
I'm listening. Yeah.
You ready for a little trivia?
Let's have some fun.
What rookie wide receiver in the history of fantasy football has the highest ADP of all time?
Oh, gosh. I was going to say Jamar Chase.
It is Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver 9 this year, the highest we have ever seen a rookie wide receiver be drafted. And by the way, guess who's second on that list? Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. have the highest ADPs from rookie wide receivers of all time.
Okay.
I feel more confident that Brian Thomas can beat his ADP of wide receiver 46 than Marvin can beat his ADP of wide receiver 9. And I freaking love Marvin Harrison Jr. It's just, you get to bet on a talented round 1 wide receiver way down the draft board compared to these other guys. And by the way, this team just lost Calvin Ridley to the Titans, who had 136 targets in 2024. There's a gaping hole in this team. Brian is an extremely talented player. He's what they need. There's touchdown upside because of his play style. He's got true league-winning upside, and no one's really talking about it. And by the way, don't wait till September to play fantasy football. Play it right now. We got people in real leagues, real tournaments, real money on the line over on UnderdogFantasy.com. If you haven't signed up yet, use the code LAND. We'll match your deposit first time 50% up to $250, meaning you'll get $125 free to bet with.
Come on, baby.
Just because you used our promo code. Maybe you don't want to play in best ball. How about player props? Well, they got pick'ems over there. You can choose whatever sport that you want to bet on. And cool thing that they've added recently is season-long projections that you can bet higher or lower on. For example, with Amari Cooper here, and of course, Drake London. So consider signing up. It's very fun. Check out the pinned comment.
All right, my first player on this list that I believe is being completely disrespected in the community at the quarterback position is Justin Herbert here. And on all 3 platforms, he's currently averaging QB 16 right now. And I understand the concerns from the community with this offense becoming a run-first team with Jim Harbaugh. I completely understand because the last time he was in the NFL was in 2011 and 2014. He had a top 5 rushing attempts outside of 1 year, which was in 2014. But I think these concerns are overblown just a bit too much. On average, the quarterbacks in Jim Harbaugh's offense from 2011 to 2014 finished as QB 11. With averaging 16 points per game. Right now, you guys are drafting Justin Herbert, like I mentioned earlier, as QB 16.
Yeah.
and he is better than Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, okay? Keep in mind, Justin Herbert was breaking rookie records, and in his first 4 years in the league, Justin Herbert was averaging QB9 and 20 fantasy points per game. Justin Herbert didn't even finish the year, and he scored more fantasy points than Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff, Tua Tags, Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence, and had 0.1 less points than CJ Stroud, who is getting drafted significant rounds higher than than Justin Herbert currently, okay?
Yeah.
And I'll end with this. It's a new NFL. The last time Jim Harbaugh was in the league was just literally 10 years ago, and it was dominated by sufficient run game. Now we have a running back by committee league and very limited true workhorse running backs that we currently have now in the league as well. Jim Harbaugh will adjust accordingly coming into this year, especially being in a division with Patrick Mahomes where he knows he's going to have to score and not just run the ball. Okay, so Justin Herbert, my first player on this list.
I love it. I think Herbert's being way, way disrespected, so I'm going to be drafting him in a lot of leagues as well. My second player that I think has top 12 upside, and not many people are talking about it, true league winning potential. You might hate me, but Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss, he is, if you were to ask me, what is one player in your projections that has you the most nervous because of how high on that player you are?
Sure.
That for me would be Zach Moss, clearly, not even close. At the moment, Zach Moss is being drafted as an RB29 on average, the 901 in a 12-man draft, which is early round 9, which means in most leagues, you will already have drafted 8 players before you take Zach Moss. If you go 0 RB, I don't think there's a better target in the 8th or 9th round than our guy Zach Moss here. And let's not forget, Moss was dominant in a starting role last year. In 8 games where he played at least 50% of the snaps in Indianapolis, he was averaging 21 touches per game, over 90 yards per game, and 16 fantasy points. If he averaged 16 fantasy points over the span of the season, that would have been good for RB9 on the year. And now he's in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. A Joe Burrow-led offense is going to score a lot of points. The RB1 in Cincinnati has been gold with Joe Mixon. In the past 3 years, he's been RB11, RB7, and RB5 on a points per game basis with Joe Burrow leading the way. And are we sure that Joe Mixon is a superior player at this point anyway? I mean, last year in almost every metric that we judge off of running backs, Mixon kind of fell short of Zach Moss, okay? You don't believe it? Well, let's have a look at yards per attempt in favor of Zach Moss. Yards after contact per attempt, missed tackles forced, breakaway percentage, those high explosive plays. Elusive rating, PFF rushing grade is the only category that Joe Mixon beats out Zach Moss. And then most importantly, I wanted to bring you guys this. Yards before contact per attempt. Because I think there will be people commenting down below, well, behind the Indianapolis offensive line, you're going to see less, people trying to tackle you quicker. Well, that's just not true. We have a metric. Yards before contact per attempt. Zach Moss faced contact earlier per attempt than Joe Mixon did last year. And as far as Chase Brown goes, I just don't think this team really trusts him that much in pass protection. I mean, if they did, they probably wouldn't have given Travion Williams 63 more snaps than him in 2023. If they felt like they could trust him, they probably wouldn't have played the career journeyman 6th round pick over him. So I think Zach Moss is going to smash. He's part of a great offense. He's a good player. And I think he's being drafted too low with top 12 upside.
Yeah. Ooh. We'll wait and see. I'm excited for Zach Moss. I think Chase Brown got a little bit in there. Let's see. My second player on this list at the tight end position, I think he's getting his recognition now. No question. That is Jake Ferguson here. He's currently tight end 9 in the community. He's averaging early 9th round, which I think is not truly represented. I've seen him going as early as the 8th round, so keep that in mind. But what the hell is Jerry doing? Okay? I mean, a team that needs positional players, and he did absolutely nothing. The Cowboys got rid of Tony Pollard. Michael Gallup's no longer on the team. In free agency, he picks up Ezekiel Elliott. Come on. Jake Ferguson is going to be getting more targets, and he had a low-key decent year, seeing over 100 targets, 5 touchdowns, finished the tight end 9, averaging 10.4 fantasy points per game. And he was first in contested catches amongst tight ends. But what really excited me is this. He was first in red zone targets with 24 inside the 20 amongst tight ends last year. Dak Prescott is showing that Jake Ferguson is one of his favorite targets when he gets into that red zone. And keep in mind that this should continue going into 2024 because last year the Cowboys were first in passing attempts in the NFL. But for me, Jake Ferguson is a phenomenal value here.
Yeah, no, I love Jake Ferguson as well. I think he's very affordable and a good option if you miss out on those big 5 or 6 tight ends.
Yeah.
All right, I got one specifically for people playing in Superflex leagues. If you're playing in Superflex, maybe you're in a best ball tournament, that's a Superflex tourney, or maybe like Badaki and myself, you play in half one quarterback, half Superflex and redraft formats. I think there's a quarterback that's being way undervalued right now in those formats. That is Geno Smith. I'm projecting big foundational changes for Seattle's offense in 2024. It's a clean slate, new coaching staff, out with Pete Carroll, in with Mike McDonald, out with Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, in with Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb, if you don't know, the former Washington Huskies head coach, has talked about how excited he is to throw the ball in this offense. And his offense was dominant in college football through the air last year. Last year, the Washington Huskies, out of 130 plus Power 5 schools, first in passing yards per game, 12th in passing attempts per game, and 9th in total touchdowns per game. Ryan Grubb is a main reason so many Huskies got drafted this year, right? Roma Dunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan. More importantly, Michael Penix Jr., a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. And we are 1 year removed from Geno Smith being a top 8 quarterback in points per game. Yeah, not a good year last year. But if this team actually throws the ball more than they have in the past 2 years, what is Geno's upside? I mean, is there another top 8 points per game season out there for him? And if you, like myself, believe in a DK Metcalf bounce back, a JSN breakout, then it only logically makes sense that Geno could be a big part of that. So going as a quarterback 26 on average in drafts, you can get an anchor QB in a super flex league. Let's say Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, Patrick Mahomes, whatever. And then way later down the board, you can get Geno Smith as your quarterback too and fill out the rest of your roster. So I think he's a great pick in super flex leagues, and I don't think you should sleep on him because he was bad last year. We have to predict change, and I think there's big change in Seattle.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of my big bounce back players that you need to give a second chance to, and I love Geno Smith coming into this year, especially with Ryan Grubb. All right, my last guy. I would say this is my Zach Moss of this year. Okay. And that is Jerome Ford. I like it. He's currently going in the middle to late 10th round. And let's talk about the elephant in the room with Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's return, right? There's a lot of talk about Nick Chubb returning. And as much as I want him to return and come back to the Nick Chubb that we all know and love, I just don't see that happening. And I understand the hype that is coming around it with all the new reports and we seeing him running. I just can't trust that, especially with the historical data that we've seen here in the past. I mean, you can see this graphic. This is a running back in the last 5 years that have come off an ACL tear, and look at their running back finish. I mean, Saquon Barkley was the most recent one within that group. But yes, you do have the outliers. You have the outliers like Breece Hall last year. Adrian Peterson was the RB1 in 2011. The difference between those 3 running backs is that Nick Chubb had a scary injury, a really gruesome injury. Yeah. He tore his ACL and his MCL, where he had to have 2 different surgeries on the same knee that he tore back in college. Okay, I can't lean on Nick Chubb to be the guy, and he's going higher than Jerome Ford currently. And the Browns' offseason moves made me believe that they believe in Jerome Ford because they get rid of Kareem Hunt. You pick up Deontay Foreman, who I believe is insurance, Nyheim Hines, who's more of a special teams guy, and they get rid of Alex Van Pelt and go to Ken Dorsey, who's coming from the Buffalo Bills. And Ken Dorsey coming from Buffalo, who loves to target his running backs like we saw with James Cook in the early part of the season. But more opportunities is coming for Jerome Ford. And we saw when he was a starter for weeks 3 to 17, he was averaging 12.9 fantasy points. He was only getting 52% of the snap share and getting 4 receptions, 2.8 targets, and averaging 12 attempts on the ground. I mean, and what can that potentially be? In that span, keep in mind, he was averaging more points than Bijan, Tony Pollard, and DeAndre Swift. That's crazy. Yeah. And with Kareem Hunt gone, leaving behind 31% of the snap share, Jerome Ford is only seeing 51 this past year. I can see that upticking to 70 to 75% with my expectations of Nick Chubb not being ready, coming into the first half of the season. He could end up being a low-end RB1 by the middle of the season, but right now he's valued as a low-end RB2 or a high-end RB3, if even. Yeah. So I think this is a phenomenal price right now for Jerome Ford that is on a really great offense going into the 2024 season.
Yeah, and an offense that features the run game, so there should be plenty of opportunity for him, and he showed good spurts. So I like the take for sure. All right, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you very soon. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.